We ready to rock and roll?
Let's do it.
All right, let's get this party started. Welcome to the smartest people in the room. We are so glad you are here with us, and just by showing up, you are already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, I am pleased to feature two rock stars from Music Row right here in Nashville, both with long and distinguished careers. They are both about two of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, and I am blessed to have them in my orbit. I promise you will leave today a lot smarter and more inspired than you arrived. More on that in just a moment. Before I get started, let me take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people and the amazing work they do day to day in the music industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Many of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I place music executives like these two guys in roles throughout the industry. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, say hello to your friends, and make some new ones. And please ask questions of our speakers. We will try to address as many of those as possible during the session. Also, please make sure your chat is set to address speakers and attendees. I want to thank our sponsors for without their support, we could not keep this series free. Special thanks to First Horizon Bank, Turnkey ZRG, Four Roses Bourbon, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Lightning 100, Tennessee Brew Works, Moo TV, Jive Printing, Project Music, and Cushmasters. So let's get down to business. In today's host seat, we welcome Chris Oglesby. Chris is a 30-plus year veteran of the music industry, music publishing industry, and is currently VP of Creative at BMG Nashville. After stops at AMR, Almo, Irving, BMG, and 19 Entertainment, Chris joined BMG again as VP of Creative in 2013. Along the way, he signed and worked with writers such as Craig Wiseman, Luke Laird, David Lee, Alan Shamblin, Mike Reed, Shy Carter, and James Slater. He sets up co-writes with and for Carrie Underwood as well. Chris has been part of hit songs such as Heaven and Good As You by Kane Brown, So Small, Temporary Home, and Last Name by Carrie Underwood, Rascal Flatts, Praying for Daylight, George Strait's Check Yes or No, Young and the Good Stuff by Kenny Chesney, Lone Stars, Amazed, Mark Will's 19-something, Tim McGraw's Live Like You Were Dying, and Keith Urban's God Whispered Your Name. He certainly knows how to spot talent and help it flourish. Welcome, Chris. So glad you have you here. And joining Chris today as featured guest is Shelby Kennedy. Shelby is a second generation to the music industry where his family has been active for several decades. His father, Jerry Kennedy, was an A-team musician, which I want you all to talk about later today, what the A-team is, Shelby. Producer and past label head for Nashville's Mercury Records. His brothers, Gordon and Brian, both known for their songwriting credits. Shelby made songwriting contributions as well when he secured his first cut recorded by Ray Charles and perhaps his most recognized hit, Reba's I Am a Survivor. Shelby's worn many hats throughout his career, and each of those hats has had to fit his right brain, left brain approach to working with songwriters, artists, and industry executives. He presented Alan Jackson to Arista Records and found She Daisy for Lyric Street Records, where each were flagship artists who launched 2 new record labels. His views come from a lifetime of eyewitness accounts inside the industry and from the experience he's had on both sides of the desk and on both sides of the glass. Shelby has unique insight as the rare executive to serve writer and publisher relations at both ASCAP and BMI. He also established entertainment relations for the well-established digital distributor TuneCore. Inspired to bring more creative solutions for music creators, he now serves as president of North America for Amazing, which owns and operates Amazing Radio, Amazing Songs, and the CMJ. Please welcome these two rock stars to the smartest people in the room. And please take it away, Chris.
All right. Thank you, Tom. It's such a pleasure to be here. It's a little unnerving to be on a Zoom call, webinar. What I don't even know what you call this. Be smartest person in the room, but thank God I'm in a room by myself. So I guess I am. But I can't thank you enough for having us on here. Yeah, at the beginning, you told us when we first started talking about this to keep this like we have lunch conversations. And luckily, I get to do this with one of my best friends. And so it'll be very lunchy, I am sure. But I'm honored to know Shelby and to have been a longtime friend of his, and gleaned a lot from him. A lot of great creative things have come from our lunches and ideas. And it reminded me to talk about the sign spinner. So that was a lunch idea, and it went over pretty well. So anyway, I'm going to ask Shelby a series of questions, but I'm going to start with Shelby. Tell us a little bit of your story. How'd you get from the womb to where you are now?
Well, I was stuck with that destiny, I guess, as far as being here. First of all, let me say, Tom, thank you for having us. But Chris, back at you. The friendship is killer. Everybody has a brain trust, and you're right in the center of it. So you know what I'm going to do sometimes before I know. So anyways, glad to be here. As far as the pathway to the industry, I've always admired people that come to Nashville because everybody's path is not so easy. People have to sell things. They have to move. There's a lot of pick up and roll the dice here in Nashville. For me, this is where I grew up. And, I tell people it's like, this is the pond I grew up around. So we swim in it. It's just, that's why we're here. So that's been interesting, but I was blessed to grow up in a household that was music. My parents were both Shreveport, Louisiana. They were Louisiana hayride. So our father was already doing this. Our mom was on Epic Records. When the three of us came along, that ended her career. It was like, but anyways, some of that sloshed over into the offspring, right? So the brothers, I'm the youngest of three. So I'm the scraps of the Kennedy family here at the moment. I have a son, so now I can pass on the scraps title, But anyways, it's been a really good thing for me to grow up here because I've seen the evolution of the industry. Like Tom was saying earlier, everything has changed. But if you can see the past, I think it's good to look to the future because we recognize the pitfalls, and they're new ones. But then there's the same old ones that are there decade after decade. But anyways, I've got my hand on my buzzer. I'm ready to answer any question, Chris. What's the next question?
I had, a bunch of things written down. And so I'm just going to play it by ear right now. And since Tom mentioned the A-Team and you mentioned growing up in a musical family and you kind of got into figures. So did you really A&R and pick the singles for Roger Miller?
And the reason why Chris is saying that. So there's me and my brothers are real little. Our dad he produced all the Roger Miller stuff back when. And he actually had the first single that was going to come out. They had the parts pressed. Everything was ready for Roger's single. And he called his boss named Charlie Fash and said, "Hey, can we change the single?" And Charlie Fash is like, "We got everything picked. We got the parts. Everything's going out. Why do you want to change the single?" And he said, "Man, my kids are going crazy over this one song." He goes, they're going nuts. And I'm a little baby, but Gordon and Brian, they're just really getting into this. But it's kind of that same syndrome probably Achy Breaky Heart had or Swinging had. It's like if you can get the little kids moving, you may be onto something, right? They actually changed this, and it was either I think it was Dang Me, I think was the song. Dang Me or Chug a Lug, I can't remember which one, but they actually pulled the plug after spending all the money, put it out. Of course, it's a big hit. I got to ask Charlie Fash about that years later. And I said, what was the first single? And he told me, and I said, what was that? He goes, nobody ever heard it. So it never got out what they originally picked. But that's why Chris is telling that story, guys.
Look at you. I mean, wearing diapers and picking hit singles.
They're still doing that.
Okay, so on your path, you've made stops at ASCAP and BMI, Lyric Street, TuneCore, Cherry
Heart.
Cherry Heart Publishing. You've been a writer. Is there anything, what's the common denominator, do you think, between those different aspects of the business, and how do you can you connect those dots in any way where one benefits the other? Or?
Yeah, I think the connection for them does help a lot. I mean, if you think about sports analogies, sorry, but you're in a football huddle. And if you got everybody in the huddle there and you look up and you see this one player that plays tight end, can play fullback, can play H-back, hey, that's cool. I got a wide receiver that can play tight end too. Hey, I've got a tackle that can play guard. He may be able to play center. It's like when you see people that play different positions, there's all kinds of plays you can call. And there's a different understanding of the game when you can play all those positions. So for me, it is right brain, left brain. It's like you know, if you think of the term music business, music is creative. We all get that. You know, we got to write this song, we got to record it, we got to put it out, how are we going to mix it, and all that. That's all creative. And then there was the business part. How do we monetize this? How do we exploit this? But we live in an era now where the business part, it has to be just as, if not more creative than the music part. Mm-hmm. So if you can do the music part and you can do the business part, I think you must. I got to work for Billy Sherrill, iconic producer, with Al Gallico Music. And the thing that was great about Billy, he was all of that stuff. And for those animals back then, the creatives in the business chair, that's kind of how the business got started. You know, it was doing business from a creator's perspective. So the marketing came after you had the music. Sometimes now people have it in reverse. You know, it's like we're making the music to fit a marketing plan, and it's like, well, wait a minute. You know, that's another discussion. But
But do you think that's I mean, it's a good point, because you do have to consider all of those things. Now, do you think that's and not that it has to be a good or bad thing, but do you think it's okay to come into a musical situation with more of a marketing plan in mind, or do you think it needs to be the other way around?
I'm probably in the school where I think the marketing follows the music. Get the music, and if it moves you, if it's right, then figure out what you do with it. Because, you know, you've heard me say it, we've talked about it a bunch, where we say unique deserves unique.
Right.
You know, so if you kind of come up with a marketing plan and you don't have the music yet, it's kind of going backwards. Some people may have done it. I'm just saying, I'm probably not in that school. I like the music first, figure out how to market it. You know, an analogy would be if somebody worked in a car lot selling cars, you know, if they're trying to tell the manufacturer the car to make that they can sell, that's backwards. You don't need to have that person on your car lot. You know, it's like they're people, and that used to happen. I mean, that's a whole other discussion too, where radio, you know, at one time is getting too much input into what the product ought to be, and it starts going backwards. But yeah, I think all the creatives know what that is. You know, it's like, it's good if the marketing can follow the unique music.
It's one of those things we've talked about a lot. Obviously, being in music publishing and working with writers, I live by the mantra. It all begins with a song. through all of the changes in the music industry that are happening, I think two things won't change. One is people are going to consume music. How they consume it's, irrelevant, because that's always changing, but we have to do that, consume it. Then the other thing that's not going to change is somebody's going to create what's consumed. And I feel like everything between the creation date and the consumption date is negotiable. Like you and I could write a song and we could go out on the street and play it and get it consumed. Of course, we're going to starve to death based on my singing and what I've heard you do. We might be able to make a little bit. No, never mind. We won't. So, so I think it all begins with the song. What's your take on that?
All right, Chris, here's where we go. I'm going to say some things, and this is going to be blasphemous, probably to Nashville, maybe. And this is really to challenge everybody to think. So I love this discussion, by the way. I think as we mature in the industry, for me, I think the older I get, the smaller I become. I'm becoming like the kid I once was hearing this stuff. So here's what I would say to that. So just indulge me for a second. I've heard it said a million times, it all begins with a song. And I have thought about that. And then as I got older, I said, it seems like it's partially right. I think it all begins with a song, but it better end with a record. I've never bought a song before in my life, and I never will. I like the track. I like the record. I like the feel, the tempo, all that stuff. And then I got older from even then. And then I started thinking like this, because as we go through the industry, we've kind of messed up some of our thinking. I think as a writer, if I can write this great song, we can make this great record. And if we make this great record, we can make what's up on the stage. And this is what I really think now, seriously. I think it all begins with an artist. And I think when you discover that artist, and it's a discovery, you can't create them. You can only discover them. But when you discover that artist and they have the it factor, they deserve this great track that deserves this great song. So don't compromise song, track for this great artist. Because if you do compromise these, you've just totally destroyed what they are. But I think as a kid, back to Roger Miller, let's take Roger. Roger Miller was bigger than life. He was this character. It's like, do I know what his song is about? Do I know what My Uncle Used to Love Me, But She Died is about? It's like, no, can't roller skate in a buffalo herd. Do I know what that is? Like, I don't, I'm not taking drugs as a little kid, but, I think all of that stuff, the Beatles, I was into the Beatles before I knew about the songs. It's like the record and then the song. So I don't know if that makes sense. It's probably going to make people hate me, or maybe they'll understand that I think the artist gets their attention sometimes before the song, and I'm not minimizing it. We need the song to be just serious. It's buying that couch in the furniture store. I walk in, I see this couch, and I start saying, Chris, look at let's say we work in wood instead of music. I'm like, Chris, look at the carving of this arm and look at the stain and the grain of the wood and everything. And then a couple walks up and say, oh, yellow, white stripes, we'll take it.
Yeah.
You're talking about color. We're talking about the craft, the goods, and the marketplace is the marketplace. And I think sometimes the industry separates itself and they forget to be a fan. Yeah. And I think that we can really start getting into our craft so much we disconnect from the marketplace. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense to me. I think it's like the song is the mechanism that sets everything else in place, and because you could actually pair a song and an artist together and have nothing, but you take that different song with a different artist, it becomes massive. Or you take that failed artist and so that pairing becomes like key and magical in so many ways. So I guess this kind of all goes back to the same thing. It's just that, like, how things are evolving. Do you see, artists being able to do things today that they weren't able to do several years ago, or when you first started?
Yeah, and I know you know this too, Chris. Thanks for the question, but it's true. We're in a totally different place now. I mean, the way it used to be, can you remember somebody would say, "Hey, I got a record deal." The first question anybody would ask somebody when they said they were signing like this new record label record deal, the first question would be, "Who's got distribution?" That used to be the first question, because they're trying to figure out, are you really going to be in the marketplace or not? And that was the question. Well, you can flush that. That's not even a challenge. It's like, take your pick. You got an array of distributors. So in the old marketplace, marketing, okay, that's a different kind of thing too. And the expenses, making a record, I mean, really expensive. The budgets were up there. And then the distribution, of course, you got that. And so where you are now with marketing of something, social media, oh my gosh, that's direct marketing. What does that cost? Right. If somebody knows what they're doing, brain power, now again, it's that right brain, left brain, let's figure out how to make this social media work. And I am not a person to know the social media world. I'm probably the old guy when it comes to that, but yeah. But direct marketing, we dreamed of that at a label. Wouldn't that be cool if you could just direct market? And then, of course, the expense part. I'm telling you right now, the money that's being spent, from what I'm hearing, is so minimal. I mean, people are doing these records in their bedroom, and you would never know it. I mean, I'm working at Amazing now. We can talk about that later. But I mean, everything I'm hearing, I'm just like, oh my gosh, the quality is off the chart for what people can do. So everything is in the creatives toolbox right now. And that's what's great about this whole thing. There's the gatekeepers, that was old. Gatekeepers now, only if you're asking for them. If people want a gatekeeper, you can get one. But most people are figuring out that there's no gatekeeper. There's no barrier to enter this marketplace. What's needed to do that is focus and unique planning, like blueprints that you draw, not blueprints that you read. That's the other thing too. You remember a lot of the labels, the marketing plans for these artists. It was just a matter of erasing the name at the top of the page and replacing it. Right. Those days need to be gone. I think they are. So
they do. I agree with that. I think you just have to. I think we've passed the days where you can put something in a machine and just march it through and expect the same results for each one that goes through there, because of the way things have changed. Charles Alexander says Shelby for the win. Well, I didn't even get in the argument, Charles. Let me go back to it all starts with a song. So, no.
Well, hey, I will say this. If Charles is here, then this whole smartest people in the room is a totally false advertisement. Charles for the win.
Charles for the win. Always.
So, hey, Chris, let me throw this back at you for a second. As you talk about the evolution of things, you did something that was really unique here in Nashville when you started the writer management thing. So, like, explain how that arrived in our neighborhood here.
I think there were a couple things, catalysts for me diving into that. One is I had no idea what a writer manager was. I was going back and forth to London a lot, and to try to open up opportunities for our writers. And I found I kept meeting with writer managers, and it's like, man, that's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It just seems redundant. And because I know all of our writers, and I knew their kids. I knew what they had for lunch in most cases and who they're riding with, all that sort of stuff. Other markets, writers don't have that. And so they needed somebody to come in and help them with things. So anyway, I had somebody approach me about it initially, and I just said no, because I said it's redundant. This won't work in Nashville. But as I watched things change and artists get more involved and publishers being very, we want to sign this person based on their releases, not based on what they could do. That was one of the things that spurred me to management. The other thing is, in publishing, you get a certain debt level, you have to part ways. Writer management, you just keep working until you both agree it's not working anymore. So I had a friend of mine in London ask me, or I called him and I said, hey, would you like to do it? Not knowing anything, and did a handshake deal with a few of my friends, and just began to figure it out. And I love that part of it, because it allowed me to keep working with writers that I loved, and for an undetermined amount of time, until we grew out of that relationship, or that relationship was not going to be defined by a debt amount, and so I found it worked really, really well. I enjoyed it. It put me inside of another company that allowed opportunities to flourish, and so that was another really great aspect of being part of a management company like that.
Well, I think that was a different kind of perspective, a different approach to doing something with writers. I mean, that was fresh. You also did something else while there. I know you did like a writers retreat, like people had done writers retreats before, but you did a writers retreat that was artist focused. So now I'm throwing out the biggie, but I mean, the first writers retreat you did for Carrie, right?
Yeah, there.
Explain what that was, because that was unique at the time too.
Well, we did a couple of different ones. She had just won American Idol, and was planning a trip to Nashville to come, and we talked about putting a writer retreat together, and no one really knew her back then. Those guys would win the show, immediately, like within a week, start rehearsing, and then they would go on tour. But they wanted records out in a very short window to take advantage of that, all the TV. And so she was the first one who had said, this is who I am, and my roots are here, and this is where I want to be. And so when you're talking with creators of a television show who live in London and they say country music, and you're talking with people in Nashville and they say country music, it's two different countries. Yep. And so what we did was we put a writer retreat together, and it ended up being, it was cool, because a couple songs ended up working for her, but I had lyricists, writer producers. We weren't doing tracks at the time, but writer producers. I had people who thought in more pop kind of way, like Daryl Brown and stuff. I had Tony Mullins was part of it, and Tom Douglas, and Rivers, Rutherford, Steve McEwen for a little international flavor. Hillary was a part of it. So I tried to get all of those parameters parameters involved in it. And it sort of helped kind of define the direction in conjunction with what the label was doing, because they sent Jesus Take the Wheel. And so that kind of started the whole, helped shape the whole thing. But it was weird because we're setting it up and no one, it was Father's Day weekend. And I'm calling everybody, if we did this, could you do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, it was kind of crazy, but it worked really well. And some great writing relationships came out of it, from songs created there. Rivers Rutherford and Steve McEwen ended up with the Tim McGraw cut. And which is kind of nuts to think about, but that was the cool part about that retreat.
Yeah, the other thing, it was Carrie's intro into the writing world too. The one thing I got to see just from watching what you were doing is you were very deliberate about the co-writes for her, because I remember you talked about you didn't want her spirit to get crushed with how people approach this at such a different level, and she's trying to grow up, and you really did handle that, I think, perfectly. I think history proves that. But was that difficult to do?
Was it
difficult?
Sorry,
Was it difficult? Yeah, was it difficult to do?
You know what? I approached that whole situation like I try to do most everybody that I've signed or started working with. It's been their first deal, and I love that part of it. I just love it, and I think with her, when she really started writing, she had it in her because she was I think she was either a journalism major or communications, one of those two, and so she had that in her. But the main thing, I just wanted her to have fun and enjoy the process, and then try to put people around her that could help her create her voice. Not what you hear, but what you want to say. And it was cool because you got to see a little on the inside of that, which was fun to be a part of it,
Yeah,
So
thought that was cool.
it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. So, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to ask one more question. Today's publishers, are they
Yeah.
pitching songs or are they pitching writers?
Wow. Man, that's a good question because
Charles, I win again. I win again on the question.
you do not. Let me answer this question. What the man, I think it's a little of both. We do pitch songs. I just feel like, God Whispered Your Name was one of those, you pitch it and you play it for Missy and she plays it for Keith and bam, but so many times it's, if a writer gets a hot hand or there's a buzz about them, it can get them in rooms that that can lead to some great things. And so there's a little bit of both that goes on here. So it's a good question, Shelby, and I'll be thinking about it for a minute. But I think, if I'm being honest, it's a little of both of those things, because you have to brand a writer and get them out there and that elevate their status, so they can continue to get in better rooms.
So as we look at how the industry has evolved, labels and artists, independents, all that stuff, on the publishing front, the publisher role has evolved as well, because because of that. Not only are you just a song jockey, oh no, you're a writer jockey too. And so it's
Absolutely.
expanded. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think it gets more and more challenging as the publisher evolves, probably, right? So
I think so.
just
I think so. But I mean, when I started at Almo, all the writers kept their own calendars, and I would kind of help here and there, help set up different rights or whatever, but they
mhm,
pretty much did their own thing. Kent Robbins did his own thing, and he created those songs, and then I would watch David and Mary Dell go out and pitch those songs and get them cut and work and wrap their arms around that guy and embrace who he was and attack those songs with a lot of passion. And but today it's nah, you pretty much keeping the calendar for them and plugging them into opportunities and I feel like the industry's always been campy a little bit, but plugging your writers into different situations where the opportunities get better. And that's one of the things I try to encourage everyone here to focus on is opportunity as opposed to results. If you can put your writers in a place where opportunity is greater, the chance for results automatically goes up. And I think just for me anyway, just that little tweak in the thought process helps you open up your creative avenues when it comes to setting up co-writes, because it's a creative process setting up co-writes.
yeah.
So do you have a couple of OMG pinch me moments that you've had in your career that you could like name a couple of them?
Couple. Well, by now when you get this old, you got too many of them, but there's some beautiful ones. I mean, first of all, let's go on the Ray Charles thing, just to get that cut or to be involved in that process. Billy Sherrill had me taking tapes to Ray Charles that was staying at the Spence Manor that's across the street from BMI. That's surreal. I'm just like, I can't believe I'm knocking on the door and he opens the door and he's kind of almost hiding behind it. I'm thinking, I mean, this guy was amazing as far as how he navigated in the control room. He would back away from the desk and listen, and he'd walk back up and just press the talk back button. He knew where he was. So all that was kind of surreal. Well, singing at the Ryman, because I did backgrounds on stuff. So backgrounds at the Opry House, that was Sonia Isaacs and Anthony Smith, and then Anthony Smith, we did the Ryman, and then with Anthony, we did Farm Aid. And that was just good for me to see how meaningless I can feel, when you go out on stage and it's like, maybe it was 40,000 people. And you look out there and you're like, man, our stage is small. Mm-hmm. And I'm really small. And so I sang for the guys on stage. It was like, mm-hmm. that's kind of a good surreal moment. Let me say this. The other day I was talking about how music is going to outlive us all. And that's how important it is for all of us. It's going to outlive us all. And you know this, Chris, I told you this one time, but about 3 years ago, I think the NFL was in their, kicking off season week 1. And there was a doubleheader on TV and I'm watching the game and it's halftime. So I'm killing some time on my phone fantasy football with you idiots. And while I'm just sitting there going through this, there's all of a sudden there's a commercial that comes on TV. And it's a short commercial, but I'm like, man, that sounds like my mom. And by the way, my mom passed away in 91. But I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, that sounds like mom. And I'm like, man, I've never heard this song before. but it's in the fifth. So I back up the DVR and I listen, like, this sounds like Mom. I start looking at YouTube. It was Mom. She did this independent record in Shreveport. It was Ram Records, and it was a DeAndre Hopkins. It was an NFL commercial. He was in there. It's about a 15, 16-second commercial. And it was just one of those moments where I'm like, man, this is Mom found a way to say hi, and this was just so cool. But it just really hit me at that time thinking, man, everything we're doing musically is going to outlive us all. And I'm thinking, if you do anything in music, you've got to, because it's a legacy. You're leaving family, friends, and the other people that are getting in the business. But that's a surreal moment. It's just like, that doesn't happen. Was cool.
That's amazing that happened, and had to be one of those times where you definitely are like, well, am I dreaming this or whatever? I remember you telling that story, which is amazing, and it kind of brings us back to where you are today in Amazing Radio. Tell us a little bit about Amazing Radio and what that is.
Well, thanks for this. Yeah, because the awareness is key for us right now. So Amazing Radio has existed in the UK since 2009. And the CEO founder's like a really cool guy, Paul Campbell. He's a professional drummer, so we automatically connect with him because he's one of us, right? Mm-hmm. But they've done this radio since 2009, and a lot of artists use it for basically their promotional and marketing and their introductions into the industry, because the audience is not just fans. The audience for Amazing Radio is actually industry. I mean, major labels are listening for what's coming through there, because it's going to be the first place they hear somebody, because Amazing Radio is about new releases, new artists, new music. It's what it is. It's not, you're not going to hear recurrence. And you might hear a Hall of Fame track by Dua Lipa, Arlo Parks, or Alt J or something like that. But for the most part, this is all new music. So it's a discovery platform. Bless you, Chris. See you sneezed.
Thank you.
So anyways, it's a discovery platform for everybody. So it's really good that way. Well, in last year, they decided to establish the US feed for this. So now Amazing Radio is 2 stations, and we're building out shows on our feed. And the thing that Amazing Radio does, everything is curated. There's no algorithm. And we have show hosts, presenters, DJs, whatever you want to call them, but they do shows and they champion the music they want to play. We don't tell them anything to play, but they take the music that's directly uploaded and they do their radio shows. So it's really like old school, which is old school I like, where people champion things. It's like, this is what you need to be aware of. So Amazing Radio is that. You know a little bit about something we just started that's Amazing Songs, and that's a platform for songwriters and publishers to get awareness for executive decision makers. That's a private platform. I put those websites in the chat. Yeah, Chris.
Before you get going down that road, let me ask you a question about Amazing Radio.
Yeah.
If I'm an artist, how do I get my song on the platform so that people can hear it?
Right. So the main thing that they're doing, they're uploading directly into Amazing Radio. You don't need a distributor.
On their you go to their website and
go to amazing.radio, and that website's in the chat. So if you go to amazing.radio, you can open your account as an artist or as a label, and you can upload directly into the platform. And at that point, all the hosts are able to go through the digital locker and see what's in there. So as an artist, if you upload, you get like a profile page. You can sell your track, you can give it away. There's even a donate button for just you, the artist. So if people want to give you love money, it's where you want to send them,
Oh yeah.
You can do that. So people are uploading directly into that. And then from there, the Amazing team and all the hosts and even in the UK, they're all looking at the same music. So it's an international exposure opportunity as well. So thanks for the question. Yeah.
That is so cool. So, okay, so that's how I do it as an artist. So if somebody, Beth Hall just mentioned Mimi and Music Queen and there's, so tell me about that. When they play an artist, are they automatically uploaded in the system, or how does
No,
that work?
the music's already in the system. Mimi and Music Queen, they may even know the artist and say, hey, if you upload here, I sure would love to play your stuff. So they can champion people, they can help them by steering them into the system, or they can go through the system, and most hosts do, and they find the music that they love. Because in the back end, the host can search by genre, and there's a lot of ways they can go through. But as far as music goes, this is why I'm telling you, the quality of the independent artist right now is killer.
It's amazing.
I went and looked since February's when we started here. Erin Frankenheimer's in New Orleans. She came from TuneCore. She's got a history with Amazing before I joined. But I just looked since February to today. I've dropped the needle on 50,000 tracks. That's how much coming in. It's drinking through a fire hose, but I'm saying the quality is better than all of you probably realize. So we've got creatives doing business everywhere.
I gotta spend more time on there. That's really unbelievable, and it is amazing. No pun intended.
I know that word. Everybody's always.
I catch myself saying it, and it's like I keep branding it for you. So now you started talking about amazing songs.
Okay,
songs. Fill a brother in on that.
Well, thanks. Yeah, the songs is basically, I believe, and I think you would too, the publishing companies in this town or publishing companies, they have shelves with incredible music that never got its day, never had its day. I think publishers are sitting on mineral rights almost, but they don't get a chance to exploit them because they got new writers, they've got draws, they've got to recoup those draws. We got to pitch these songs. What about the one that's 5 years back that was written when the artist wasn't there in the window to record, and it's just been kind of forgotten about because of that? Or the artist that's perfect for it wasn't on the scene yet.
Yeah.
So this is a platform, it's private. So it's not open to the public. As a writer, I get my digital locker as a writer, and I can use it to upload my stuff, work tapes, demos, or whatever. But when I feel like I've got a demo, I would like the industry to potentially discover it. I make it discoverable. We let executives in the back end, and they're actually vetted, but they're in the back end and can look into the lockers to see the songs that people wanted to make them discoverable. So it's like you have song storage with opportunities. You know, it's like, so the shelf can be shopped if you want it to be shoppable, you know, to find. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So William Gray asked, what's the name of this private locker, and how do you get access to it? Yeah, and I don't know if he means, I don't know if he means as a writer or as somebody who's in there looking for songs.
Gotcha. And those are good questions. So as a writer, you sign up as an amazing writer and you go to amazing-songs.com. It's in the top of the chat. I put the website there. As a writer or a publisher wanting to expose your material, that's where you go. If you want to be an executive, you have to contact us, and we may reach out with a questionnaire to make sure everything is, because we don't want to compromise the executive. As a writer, I want to know that's really an executive decision maker that's in the back end. So they're vetted with questionnaires. It's free for executives, but writers and publishers pay a fee to have the storage. $36 for a writer, $150 for a publisher a year, unlimited.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Randy Owen is enjoying his fried chicken, Shelby. So Randy, better save a drumstick for a couple of fellas. So
My gosh, it's good to see him in there.
yeah, you know that thing about sign flipping that I mentioned early.
Yeah.
That idea came from lunch, and BMG did a record with Alabama, and when that came out, we we got a sign flipper out in front of BMG. He spent 2 days out there flipping the sign and turning it over and upside down or whatever. I had it hanging in the office over there for a long time, but it was a lot of fun. It was good.
And I remember, well, that's the classic. It's like you drive down Music Row and sometimes it feels like Pigeon Forge. There's so many banners and like there probably is a buffet in some of these offices.
Yeah.
It's like, what is this like? This is crazy. And then that's why we thought you got to do something different. The only thing we could do was sign flipper. Good job.
Yeah, well, it was so fun working with Alabama and those guys. We did a couple of records and
Well, I got to hang out in that building when I worked at the music mill while Harold Shedd and Joe Skate,
yeah,
Jim Cotton, and Magic was all over that place.
name dropper.
Hey, can I say something about Magic for a second, just because the word fell out?
Do you believe in it? Do you believe in magic?
Okay, I'll give you a chuckle. So, no, the one thing that I'd like to say too, when you think about the generations that are coming into the industry now, man, they're great with skills. They've mastered the method. There are students coming out, they can comp a vocal quickly, tune great, everything is great. But the one issue I think that is a problem is they are masters of the method, but they've never worked in the magic. And the magic shows up when you don't have the budget. The magic shows up when you don't have the great guitar or the great amp or the great pedals or effects. The magic shows up in the mistakes. The magic shows, it's like, man, we were wonderfully defined by our limitations. And I think that that's something when I look back or we look over our shoulders, all the magic we see, if I asked you, and we hadn't talked about this in ages, what's the brown sound? Do you remember the brown sound?
Yeah.
Tell everybody what it is.
Those were the demos that we used to, work tapes that I used to get from Craig and
Craig Wiseman. Yeah.
Yeah, they were just amazing. But and you're right though, because so many times I would hear writers upstairs, you know, speaking of Craig, it was Craig and Dave Gibson, they were up there writing, and you'd see them come down getting coffee with furrowed brows and everything, and they're writing, they're struggling over this song, and gets to be about 4 o'clock, and all of a sudden it is nothing but laughing. and it's an hour of laughing and chuckling and just hollering. And they ended up writing Forrester's Sisters single that in that little hour and a half window because of that thing you just said, method versus magic. And they just let the magic in the room, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's cool. That's a really good point. So, you're a genius. You are the smartest person in the room. I knew it all the time.
You're drinking and it's a little too early, but
I don't know if anybody has any questions or anything, but if you do, I'm not really good at reading this chat. But
you can color though. You're pretty good with coloring, right?
If it's numbered and I got lines, yeah, yep.
Charles is saying it's never too early to drink. So
I'd say that'd be about right for him.
And that's country. That's country. Yeah.
But I think you got a lot of people on here from what I saw, Shelby, really excited about amazing radio and the opportunity that brings to different people on a number of different levels. That's
a little teaser as far as what we're going to be doing heading into the new year. So Amazing, back to Amazing has amazing radio. We have amazing songs. And as you know, Tom was saying earlier, CMJ is something that Amazing has, but what's coming? We're going to be doing amazing TV. And that's going to be, this is what I love. Back to, I'm saying old school is the cool school, right?
Yeah.
And with what we're going to do there, it's almost like MTV is back, but MTV that doesn't get hijacked. It's not going to be short form programming. It'll be VJs and music. This is going to be cool. And I think independent artists never even had that opportunity back in the MTV days. And there's a generation that never even got to see it, you know, so it could be really a cool thing. We're excited about that.
That is cool. I'll be able to upload my videos and dance moves and stuff. So how do you feel with artists versus, what is it? Can you see?
Writer artist.
How's your spelling, Charles? Come on, help a fella out.
I think it's writer artist versus fan base to market directly versus radio. I don't know if he's going there, but I still think the social media component to a lot of these artists is the key. I think it's the ticket. Again, there's no excuse. This is going to sound harsh. There's no excuse for an artist to feel like they're neglected. They have every tool at their disposal right now.
Yeah.
And look, for all of you people that are working with artists, if you're outworking them, run. I just think the artist has to be in overdrive to play this game. It's not a passive game. So, and Charles, I don't know if that's what you were saying, but I think the social media is key because radio, look, I mean, there is a different game, you know, like radio is important, but it's not the only game. It's like we've spent time where all these artists, it's like they were athletes waiting to play in the Superdome. And what you would like to say is, did you realize you got ready in another stadium? Why don't you just play the game? Like, why are you can't get on the field? Well, you were on the field in your own stadium. Play the game. The independent artist right now, look, they've got to grow up. They've got to get tall. Major labels, they're in harvest mode. They sign artists when they grow up. They're not pulling artists up anymore. They're just pulling them over.
Yeah.
Right? They're in harvest mode. So here's the reality of the independent artist. You need to grow up, whether you're on your own or you're wanting to have a conversation with a major label.
That's right. It's not a slot machine. You know, it's hard work and you got to get in there and dig.
And you got to grow.
Somebody's going to eat your lunch. You're absolutely right.
But you got all the tools. Got all the tools.
Yeah.
So Tom, how are we on time? Are we good?
We are getting to the close. I'd love to pose a question to both of you guys, and that is, Shelby, I think you can answer this one easier than Chris, but who gave you your big break? Both of you, each of you got somewhere along the way a real break, a hand up. Chris, I'd like to start with you. Who gave you your first big break?
There were two, and I got to say both of them. But it was Karen and David Conrad. I talked my way into an internship with her, and 1 year later, she said, "You have to meet my husband, who runs Almo Irving." And both of those people, I wouldn't be doing this if it weren't for them.
And for me, I've got to get outside of the family. And there was Al Gallico, is this just nostalgic, classic, iconic music publisher that actually hired me. He was paying me a little bit. I mean, a little bit while I was at Belmont College, but I was working for Al, and Billy Sherrill was there every afternoon. But this is funny, Tom. He actually had me there. I was like, "Al, do you want me to work in the tape room?" Just be one of the guys. "Do you want me to pitch songs?" Just be one of the guys. I kept that. Do you want me to I kept saying, do you want me to do this? He said, just be one of the guys. Well, the guys, Tal Gallico, they were Burl Kilgore. One time he ran the office, and it was Naro Wilson, and he had Billy Sherrill, he had Glenn Sutton, had John Anderson, like all these people. And I thought, he's just asking me to be one of the guys. Basically what he was doing was he was giving me a place to grow.
Wow.
And this is out of a movie because it's just funny. Al, he comes back to town after I'm in there for a few months. We walk out on the front porch of 1111 17th. That's where Bob Dole's office is now. We walk out on the porch, and Al adjusted his glasses. He goes, hey, Shell. He goes, I talked to Billy Sherrill. He said, Billy likes you. And I'm like, well, that's nice. And he goes, no, he goes, Billy likes you. I was like, that's good. He goes, no, you don't understand. He goes, Billy likes you and he hates people. It was like, so I guess Charles, one more time for the win. You know, but that's a classic. It was like out of a movie. But
That's awesome.
That is a perfect mic drop for today. And guys, let me just say this, the chat today has been remarkable, effusive in their praise for both of you. I could have called this one the nicest guys in the room, in addition to the smartest guys in the room. So hats off to both of you. Thank you for the great work that you're doing to lift up artists. Shelby, we're excited about what's unfolding at Amazing. And Chris, I can't wait to hear about the next big writer you break. And with that, I'm going to say good night to the audience. Thank you for your continued patronage here. Be nice to each other, get a shot, and come back on Thursday at this same time. We've got a couple of guys that are from London instead of Nashville. We got Ralph Simon and Jeff Taylor. So we hope to see you then. And with that, folks, I'll just say, have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Chris.